Good evening and welcome to the City of Roswell Mayor and City Council meeting of Tuesday, November the 12th, 2024. I am Mayor Kurt Wilson, and I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues and the council members present. Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Lee Hills, Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember and Pro Tem William Morthland, and Councilmember Alan Sells. At this time, I'll now turn the meeting over to our city administrator, Mr. Randy Knighton, to explain how the meeting is run. Mr. Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson, and good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section Chapter 3.70 of the City Code, the City Council shall hold regular public meetings. The purpose of City Council meetings are for the public to participate and speak on agenda items which constitute formal decisions by the elected body. These items are listed on the published agenda, which can be accessed via the city website prior to the meeting. This is a public meeting, and some items do require a formal public hearing. A significant and important component of city council meetings are to hear directly from residents on these items, and residents are at the top of the organizational chart of the city of Roswell. Therefore, public comments and questions are essential for mayor and council to consider as they contemplate each decision. If you would like to speak on an item, we ask that you fill out a comment card, which are located at the back of the room, in order to ensure an accurate record of the meeting. We ask that everyone observe the principles of mutual respect and display the appropriate demeanor during the course of the meeting this evening, which should be and is reflective of this great community. With respect to the proceedings, we ask that attention is given to the person speaking, and if it is necessary for anyone to have an independent conversation, we ask that you exit the rear doors to the vestibule area. In addition, we ask that you silence any electronic devices at this time. The mayor is the presiding officer of the meeting and will ensure the orderly exchange of comments, questions, leading to decision-making by the elected body. We encourage everyone in attendance and the viewing audience to visit the city website for meetings, events, and departmental information. We also encourage everyone to review and participate in the offerings, various offerings and activities here in the city, which you can find on roswell365.com. There are a number of events upcoming in the city of Roswell which promote community, physical activity, and leisure as we all make Roswell the #1 family community in America. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. As always, we're very privileged tonight to have Boy Scout Troop 206 with us. I would like to ask Dan Pratcher, Committee Chair for Scout Troop 206, along with Scout Troop 206, to come forward and lead us in the presentation of the colors.
Color guard, attention. Color guard, march. Color guard, halt. Color guard, cross the colors. Color guard, post the colors. Join our veterans with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Sergeant Van P. Cunningham to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sergeant Cunningham. Thank you, Scout Troop 206. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Excellent job, gentlemen. Well done. At this time, I would like to ask our Fire Department Chaplain, Dory Griggs, to come forward and lead us in a moment of silence and the invocation.
Good evening. Please join me. Holy One, for the opportunity to gather and discuss the business of our great community, we give thanks. We give thanks each year at this time of year for our military veterans, and tonight we give special thanks for the service of United States Marine Corps Sergeant Van P. Cunningham. Remind each of us to show appreciation to our veterans throughout the year. Be with our mayor and city council members tonight as they proceed with the business of the city. We are grateful for their leadership. Bless the residents of Roswell and the staff of our great city. And keep watch over our first responders and keep them safe. Please keep us mindful of our place as a committed citizen working for the good in our great city. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Roswell Fire Department Chaplain Dory Griggs, as always. At this time, I'd like to ask Sergeant Cunningham to come back forward, and I'd like to ask the council to come down and join me for the first item under the mayor's report, which is a reading of the proclamation for the esteemed veteran of Roswell.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you saying that. It's an honor. It's an honor to have you here.
You're in the perfect place. Running that duct tape is all you got to do.
Good old duck tape.
Exactly. There's a lot of good uses, doesn't it? Proclamation, Office of the Mayor. Sergeant Van P. Cunningham, esteemed veteran of Roswell. Whereas Van P. Cunningham enlisted in the United States Marine Corps at the age of 19 and began active duty on January 8, 1967, when he embarked on basic training as a Marine rifleman at Parris Island, South Carolina. And whereas Sergeant Cunningham served with distinction at Marine Barracks 8th and I in Washington, D.C., where he performed ceremonial guard duty and participated in numerous solemn and prestigious events. And whereas Sergeant Cunningham provided security at the presidential retreat at Camp David, Maryland, demonstrating exceptional trustworthiness and earning a top security clearance. And whereas in the late winter of 1969, Sergeant Cunningham received orders for deployment to South Vietnam, where he was assigned to Marine Infantry Rifle Company Charlie, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines, operating in Dodge City, area south of Da Nang. And whereas Sergeant Cunningham, having earned the rank of Meritorious Corporal during his time in Washington, D.C., was appointed squad leader upon arrival in Vietnam and soon promoted to sergeant, showcasing his leadership and valor under challenging combat situations. Whereas despite contracting malaria, Sergeant Cunningham returned to his unit and continued to fulfill his duties with unwavering determination until completing his combat tour in March of 1970. And whereas upon honorable discharge from active duty, Sergeant Cunningham returned to Georgia, utilized the GI Bill to further his education at Georgia Southern College, and developed a passion for woodworking. Whereas Sergeant Cunningham built a fulfilling personal life, marrying in 1971, raising 2 children, Katrina and Patrick, and nurturing a family environment grounded in faith and love. Whereas Sergeant Cunningham began a distinguished 28-year career with the Cobb County Fire Department on January 16, 1975, serving as a first responder and EMT, responding to approximately 4,000 emergency calls and achieving the rank of lieutenant in January 1986. Whereas following his retirement on January 1st, 2003, Sergeant Van P. Cunningham continued his dedication to public service through 20 years of part-time work with Cobb Elections and has since enjoyed life with a growing family, including 4 grandchildren and new experiences with his beloved wife and stepdaughter. Now, therefore, I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, Georgia, do hereby name Sergeant Van P. Cunningham, an esteemed veteran of Roswell, and extend our deepest gratitude and admiration for his service, and call upon all our citizens to recognize his outstanding service to our country and to our community, and that there is no higher calling than those who've served in the United States Armed Forces. Congratulations, sir. You get the microphone now.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And, you know, when ordinary folks are not used to the spotlight, the glare of the spotlight, but amazing. I'm so honored, you know, to be here and for you guys to be able to honor us veterans in this manner. And it's a real treat. It's an honor. It's very special. And I thank you very much for that.
That's a great speech. Get your family up here.
Yeah, you guys come up, they want to do some photos.
Now, usually, thank you, sir. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the honor.
That's right. It's time to go.
Maurice, yeah.
Thank you for the honor.
Of course. Thank you for your service also.
Might as well.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were doing the DDA as well. We got a motion. Okay.
All right, next on the mayor's report is a proclamation for Veterans Day. So I would like to ask council to stay up here with me as we read the proclamation. Proclamation, Office of the Mayor, Veterans Day 2024. Whereas in 1921, the unknown soldier was buried on a Virginia hillside in Arlington National Cemetery, overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington, D.C. The site of this burial in Arlington National Cemetery symbolizes the dignity and reverence of Americans' veterans. And whereas these memorial gestures took place in England and France on November the 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I at 11 a.m. on November the 11th, 1918. And whereas on May 13th, 1938, Congress declared that the 11th day of November each year will be a legal holiday, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and a day of celebration to honor America's veterans for their patriotism, their love of country, and willingness to serve for the common good. And whereas Veterans Day is a day to thank our veterans for their service to our country and acknowledge their contributions to our national security, we would like to honor those who have served and sacrificed for our country today, November the 11th, and every day. And whereas the City of Roswell would like to thank and acknowledge our employees who are veterans and an extended appreciation to those who continue to serve in the reserves. Now, therefore, I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, Georgia, do hereby proclaim November the 11th, 2024 as Veterans Day in the City of Roswell and urge all our citizens to recognize the sacrifices and dedication of our veterans today and throughout the year. Thank you. Now, I've got an incredibly amazing list. I just want to show you There's an amazing list. There's an amazing list here of all these people who are veterans who work in the city. There's a couple of them here, and I'm going to ask them to stand up so we can recognize them. For example, Jeff Littlefield, I think you're here. Jeff, stand up. I don't see anybody else. Jamie Gazzetti. Sorry, you got to stand up. Sorry. Okay. Kristen Thomas, yes. You can stay up longer than that. Jeff, there, Jeff in IT, yes. I know you guys are shy. Anybody else?
Wilson, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your service. And we'll head back the other way. Oh, you got him? All right, let's see. Next on the mayor's report is the appointment of Dylan DeLon to the Downtown Development Authority. Does council have any questions or comments on the appointment of Dylan DeLon? Thank you very much. Is there anybody from any Roswell residents that would like to speak on the potential appointment of Dylan DeLon to the Downtown Development Authority? Thank you very much. Do I have a motion from council on the appointment of Dylan DeLon to the DDA?
Motion to approve Dylan DeLon to the Downtown Development Authority.
Thank you, Sarah. So a motion's made by Councilmember Beeson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Hills. All those in favor of Dylan DeLon being appointed to the Downtown Development Authority, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the motion passes unanimously for Dylan DeLon's appointment to the Downtown Development Authority. Congratulations, Dylan. It's okay to clap. Next on the mayor's report is the appointment of Jared Baggett to the Downtown, this is actually to the Roswell Development Authority, the RDA. Does council have any questions or comments on the potential appointment of Jared Baggett to the RDA? Thank you very much. Are there any Roswell residents that have any questions or thoughts or comments on the potential appointment of Jared Baggett to the RDA? Thank you very much. Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilmember Hills for the appointment of Jared Baggett to the Roswell Development Authority. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Morthland. All those in favor of approving Jared Baggett to the Roswell Development Authority, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the motion passes unanimously for Jared Baggett to the RDA. Congratulations, Jared. All right, next is the reading of the oath of the office, both for Dylan DeLon and Jared Baggett. Please come forward to read the oath of office. We'll read them separately.
Can't wait. Thank you. Good to meet you. Yeah, Dylan, yeah.
Familiar with this?
I read it.
All right, you've got so do me a favor, raise your right hand, put your left hand on the Bible. And you've got this, and I'm going to read you the oath, and you read after me.
Okay.
Oath of office. Oath of office, State of Georgia, County of Fulton, City of Roswell. I, Dylan DeLon,
I, Dylan DeLon,
solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the State of Georgia,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Georgia,
and that I will in all respects observe,
and I will, in that I will in all respects observe
the provisions of the Charter
the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the City of Roswell,
and the ordinance of the City of Roswell,
and I will well
and I will well
and truly perform the duties of the office
and truly perform the duties of the office
of the Downtown Development Authority,
of the Downtown Development Authority,
and that I will, to the utmost of my skill
and that I will, to the utmost of my skill
and ability,
and ability,
endeavor to promote the interest
endeavor to promote the interest
and property
and the property
of said city
of said city
without fear,
without fear,
favor,
favor,
or affection.
or affection.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
That one work? Oh. No, sir.
Thank you. How are you, sir? All right, Jared, if you'd raise your right hand, put your left hand on the Bible, please, sir. Oath of office, State of Georgia, County of Fulton, City of Roswell. I, Jared Baggett,
I, Jared Baggett,
solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and in the state of Georgia,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Georgia,
and that I will in all respects observe
and that I will in all respects observe
the provisions of the Charter
the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the City of Roswell,
and ordinances of the City of Roswell,
and I will well
and I will well
and truly perform the duties of the office
truly perform the duties of the office
of the Roswell Development Authority,
of the Roswell Development Authority,
and that I will, to the utmost of my skill
and that I will, to the utmost of my skill
and ability,
and ability,
endeavor to promote the interest
endeavor to promote the interests
and property
and property
of said city
of said city
without fear,
without fear,
favor, or affection.
favor, or affection.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
All right, the last item on the mayor's report is a list of upcoming events in the city of Roswell. As always, I ask our Parks and Recreation liaison, Councilmember Lee Hills, to lead us and read us our upcoming events. Lee?
Of course. Thank you, Mayor. Want to remind everyone to keep your eye on Roswell365.com, which is the epicenter of information of items and events going on in the city of Roswell. If you have something going on in Roswell by way of your church or shul, place of worship, your nonprofit that you participate in, even an HOA that you want to advertise to the neighborhood or to Roswell and beyond, please go on to Roswell365.com and create your own login and account, which is free. And then you can post a picture and information regarding your event, and it'll be placed up there until the event comes to pass. So I encourage you to do that if you've got something coming up. Also coming up in November, I can't believe we're already talking about the double digits here in November, but we've got America Recycles Day, and this is a recycling centers tour. Saturday, November 16th, I believe the events start around 10 in the morning and go throughout the day. And this is a national holiday dedicated to increasing recycling and reducing waste that ends up in landfills, waterways, and natural spaces. Join us at the Roswell Recycling Center for a free tour of the facility, as well as family-friendly games and activities. Participants will get an in-depth view of recycling in Roswell and learn ways they can be stewards to the environment. We are the envy of our sister cities with our recycling center. We also have on November 16th, which is a Saturday, at 8 a.m. for those early birds, Run for the Cookies 5K. This is a family-friendly race that is perfect for runners and walkers of all skill levels. Run along the Chattahoochee River in flat and fast 5K that is also an Atlanta Journal-Constitution Peachtree Road Race qualifier. So you have a little lead time for that one. Runners who participate in the Run for Cookies 5K will receive a box of Girl Scout cookies at the end of the race to celebrate. This event is open to everyone in the community that wants to run and support local Girl Scouts. After the race, everyone can enjoy a live DJ, activities for all ages, vendor tables, and refreshments in our interactive cookie village. Also on November 16th, right next door at Smith Plantation, we have History Seeks Saturdays event, Children's Civil War Tour. This is again Saturday, November 16th from 11 a.m. to 12:30. Children grades 4 through 8 are invited to Smith Plantation to learn more about the Civil War home front in Roswell and this area. Tour the home and outbuildings at Smith Plantation while discovering and discussing what life was like for those who experienced shortages and the loss of loved ones. There will be a discussion on the invasion and occupation of Roswell and its effects on the people who lived here and explore people's differing perspectives on the war. Then we have something to get you ready for Thanksgiving and the in-laws at Christmas. Bladesmithing 101, Railroad Spike Knife Workshop. This is at Art Center West, Saturday, November 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This workshop at the Forge at Art Center West is a great introduction to knife making. I've heard it's amazing, really, for all that survived it. You'll learn to forge a railroad spike knife that's good for camping, utility, and ornamental purposes. While these one-day intensive workshops serve as introduction to bladesmithing, each participant will leave the workshop that day with a finished knife with an integral handle. So I've talked to a lot of people that have done this and said it's awesome. Again, envy of the sister cities. Roswell Youth Theater Main Stage presents Beauty and the Beast Jr. This is right in the back door here, or front door, I guess you would say, at Roswell Cultural Arts Center, November 22nd and 23rd. This is based on the original Broadway production that ran for over 13 years and was nominated for 9 Tony Awards and the Academy Award-winning motion picture. Disney's Beauty and the Beast Jr. is a fantastic adaptation of the story of transformation and tolerance, and features some of the most popular songs ever written by Alan Menken and the late Howard Ashman, along with new songs by Mr. Menken and Tim Rice. And then I would be remiss if I didn't point out the Christmas tree lighting will be on Friday, December 6th, so mark your calendar. Supersedes Avalon and all of our cities around us. You don't want to miss it. It is a very heartwarming, friendly for everybody event, and you don't want to miss it. We also have going on at the same time in the historic town square, the Deck the Square, which is a gallery of trees sponsored by local individuals, by local nonprofits, or even just a family that wants to commemorate something special in their life. So if you'd like to do that, please check in with Recreation and Parks or special events here in the city of Roswell. But just want to get on your calendar because this is not one to miss. December 6th, 6 p.m. That'll be right here at Heart of Roswell. And when the tree goes on, the lights at Town Square go on at the same time. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Lee, so much.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. And thanks for reminding us about Friday, December 6th tree lighting. It's hard to believe that is 4 weeks away. All right, next is the consent agenda. There are 8 items on the consent agenda. I am pulling 2 items off the consent agenda for separate consideration. So the first 2 items we will consider separately before we consider the consent agenda. There are items number 5, approval of a change order to a Sear World LLC scope of work number 1, and number 6, approval of scope of work of number 5 under the contract master service agreement with Sear World LLC for the Hill Street redevelopment. We will consider item number 5, approval of change order Sear World LLC scope of work first. So let that be set as a separate motion to be addressed. Floor is now the council's for any thoughts, comments, or questions on item number 5. Councilor Beeson.
I appreciate pulling those off, just to make sure that my vote is consistent with the same that it was in committee, and for the entire reasoning behind my vote in committee, feel free to go back and watch that from exactly 2 weeks ago today. But just to refresh, it's not a hesitation on the vendor itself. It is an opposition to not having a framework in place on the staff side as to when we utilize the vendor, and to make sure that there's not an overrun on the city side in regards to budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Beeson. Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council on item number 5? Thank you very much. Any thoughts, comments, or questions from any Roswell residents on item number 5? Thank you very much. Bring it back to council. Is there a motion for item number 5? Councilman Wortham, would you like to make a motion, sir?
Motion for approval of a change order to Sear World LLC, scope of work number 1.
Thank you very much. Motion is made by Councilmember Mortland. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Sells. All in favor of the approval of change order to Sear World LLC, scope of work number 1, please raise your hands. Let the record state that there's 5. All opposed? Let the record state there's 1. Let the record show there's 5 to 1. Thank you very much. Now consider item number 6 on the consent agenda, approval of scope of work number 5 under the contract master services agreement with SeaWorld LLC for the Hill Street redevelopment. Any thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Councilmember Beeson.
Ditto. Same as the item before, just wanting a framework in place on the staff side, as staff is the one who determines when we utilize this vendor, making sure that we have a framework in place for when and how, and making sure that we don't have overruns.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Being that there are none, I'll ask any Roswell residents if they'd like to have any comments on item number 6. Thank you very much. I bring it back to council. Is there a motion for number 6? Councilmember Mortland.
Motion to approve scope of work number 5 under the contract master services agreement with SeaWorld LLC for the Hill Street redevelopment.
Thank you, Will. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Councilmember Hills. All in favor of item number 6 on the consent agenda, approval of scope of work number 5 under the contract master services agreement with SeaWorld LLC for the Hill Street development, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Let the record show that the vote is 5-1. Thank you very much, and that the motion passes. Next is the consent agenda items 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8. Are there any thoughts, comments, or questions from council on the consent agenda? Thank you very much. I'll now ask any Roswell residents, are there any comments, thoughts, or any comments on items 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, or 8 on the consent agenda? Thank you very much. Bring it back to council. Any final thoughts, comments, or questions? If not, yes, council. There's a motion by Councilmember Hall to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor of approving the consent agenda with items 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the consent agenda with those aforementioned items passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. Next is the regular agenda, and the first item is under community development with our liaison and pro tem Councilmember Will Mortland. Will, would you read the first item under community development, please, sir?
First item under community development is RC 2023-5097, Old Riverside Road Metropolitan River Protection Act, presented by Kristen Thomasberger.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be presenting River Corridor Application 2023-5097. This is for 0 Old Riverside Road. So on this slide, you can see the river corridor, which is highlighted in blue. The star on the map that's on the inlay, that is the location of 0 Old Riverside Road. It's to the east of 400. This is an aerial of the property. It is zoned RS18, which stands for residential, with 18,000 square feet of property for each single-family lot. The applicant is proposing to do 6 single-family lots on this property. The surrounding properties are also zoned RS18, and you can see that in the yellow. This is the proposed site plan. This is just a preliminary site plan. This will have to come back through many different processes before it's actually approved. And you can see on this site plan the different letters that are on there, which stand for the different vulnerability categories that the Atlanta Regional Commission reviews when reviewing this plan. And these are the calculations that they reviewed as well. It's a lot of numbers on there. ARC has reviewed this, and they have found that it is consistent with the Chattahoochee River Corridor Plan. Staff recommends approval of this application. The next steps for this, if this is approved by Mayor and Council, is that the applicant will have to have a stormwater concept meeting with EPW. Then they will submit for a preliminary plat for a subdivision, which is reviewed by Planning and Zoning, Engineering, Tree, Transportation, Fire, Building, Stormwater, GIS, and Fulton County Health. The preliminary plat will then be heard by the Planning Commission, which will vote on whether or not to approve it. If it is approved, the applicant will submit for a land disturbance permit application, which is reviewed by Planning and Zoning, Engineering, Tree, Transportation, Fire, Building, and Stormwater. And then the applicant will schedule all required inspections by the land development inspectors. Once the LDP has been issued, the applicant can submit for their final plat. which is reviewed by Planning and Zoning, Engineering, Tree, Transportation, Fire, Building, Stormwater, GIS, Fulton County Health, and it will come back to you all to see, to approve or deny. If it is approved by Mayor and Council, the applicant will submit building permits for each new single-family home, which are then reviewed by Engineering, Building, Planning and Zoning, and any other applicable departments. The applicant then schedules all required inspections by the building inspectors. In the packet online, you will see the site plan, the erosion control plan, and the City of Roswell stormwater erosion preliminary plat and final plat, land disturbance, and building permit checklists. Do you have any questions for staff?
Kristen, thank you very much. Number one, thank you for your service again.
Thank you.
And thank you for your excellent and concise presentation on this MERPA issue, the Metropolitan River Protection Act. Does council have any thoughts, comments, or questions in relation to the MERPA consideration on Old Riverside Road? Councilmember Beeson.
I see folks sitting out. I feel like you're engaged in this item more so than maybe the consent agenda. I also will say that I saw several comments online, so I'm going to go ahead and preface any discussion we have up here with this item tonight is purely, solely, only the Metropolitan River Protection Act. It's a 1972 act that said that anything that is approved within 2,000 feet of Chattahoochee River has to go through this calculation as overseen by the Atlanta Regional Commission. It is completely just a calculation of impervious surface of what's going to be proposed to be built. That said, as was just covered, we have 8 departments within the city of Roswell that still have to review this proposed property. You have at least one department within Fulton County, and then you have mayor and council, which is about 10 layers of an approval process that come after this, which is just step 1. So our discussion this evening has nothing to do with yay or nay about this actual development. It's only going to be to discuss the Metropolitan River Protection Act and the guidance that is given in that legislation as to what we can say yes or no. And when staff says we recommend approval, I know you hear the word approval and you're like, what do you mean approval? She means approval based off of it met that calculation. So hopefully that gives a little bit more background, and I say that because we just had this conversation with an entirely different property a month ago with people staring at me with faces that look exactly like yours right now. So I'm hoping that shines a little more light on that situation for you. That's it.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Roswell residents, but you probably heard it. Unless you're really addressing MERPA, like if you're addressing, I don't want this to happen because it's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, it's really not germane because you probably heard. There's a bunch of processes to go through. Ultimately, it goes to the planning, then it goes to the Planning Commission, and ultimately it'll land back here if it gets approved at mayor and council, where it would be appropriate to say, I do not want this to happen, or I do want this to happen for such and such a reason. Tonight is just MERPA, as Sarah said, that's relative to impervious space on the piece of property, and that's all this is relevant to. So if you want to comment on that, please, you're more than welcome. If you don't want to comment on MERPA, I definitely get it. But that's really the only thing I would ask comments for is on MERPA. Any Roswell residents want to comment on MERPA? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please. If you'll do me a favor, tell us who you are and where you live in Roswell.
My name is Cheryl Fillion. I live in the River Terrace neighborhood that's not too far from this property. I have to admit, I have not necessarily come to a city council meeting before, so when you're saying MERPA, I've heard it. I don't necessarily know all the details. So what I really, because I was going to be one of those person that was going to tell you what I was thinking. Clearly, maybe that's not the best time to do that.
Not yet.
However, I would like to hear from you guys when and how we as residents can be involved along the way, because I don't want this to get to the point where we've done all this work, finished everything, and then it's the 11th
Great.
hour and I say it,
That's a
and
great
we've
point.
done it all.
So the first really kind of public process will be the Planning Commission. So when it gets to the Planning Commission, that's a public meeting, and you can show up to the Planning Commission and weigh in at the Planning Commission. That's way before the mayor and council. So obviously, to your point, I think it's a very good point that you make. Like, I don't want to, if I don't object tonight, will this screw me down the road where it was too late? And I think that's a very fair point. And really what I want to say is literally what Sarah said is right. This is just about MERPA. It's almost, it has to come in front of the public body to be approved. It's a law. But as Randy said to me In my 40 years of doing this, I've never seen a MRPA issue be challenged because it's really not relevant to what your concern is as a resident, like, will this be done? This is just simply a water equation. It's really what this is, and has no bearing on the ultimate, hey, will this happen or not? So my answer to you in short, and guys, back me up if I miss something, yes, there's a whole bunch of phases through the city it's going to go through, but you know, as a resident, you don't get to see those. Planning Commission is kind of the first place, very publicly, you get to come and say, hey, I like what you're doing, or hey, please don't do that. That would be my counsel.
Okay, and what is, the reason I found out is because I saw the big yellow sign when I was driving by. What is the best way for us as residents to stay on top of exactly where this is going along the way?
It's a great question. Kristen?
Kristen, staff. The best way is to either reach out to the Planning and Zoning Department. You can also go onto the Roswell Gov website where they have the public notices for Planning and Zoning, which will tell you what's going to be heard at what meeting.
Okay, how long in advance do they put those out before they actually happen? Is it like a week or like a month or?
For plats, we're required to do at least 7 days prior, so it's at least a week prior, but you can check in and see if anything has been submitted, and we'll let you know.
And let me also address, your fellow residents who are your elected representatives are very sensitive to when you're sensitive about something. So feel free to email them. I can promise you, they pay attention to what you email, particularly on these kind of issues. So it's not like it doesn't get buried. Okay, so you can say, hey, a month from now, I haven't heard anything. And what they'll do is when the electeds will reach out to one of the staff and say, where are we on this? And staff will say, it's this place in the process, we're 2 months away, or it's coming up next week, and they'll respond to you accordingly. So I hear you. Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Hall. Randy.
If I may, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
To suggest, since we do have very interested residents here, if there's a spokesperson for a subdivision or subdivisions there, that we can make sure we obtain your contact information. That way, the planning department can be proactive and reach out to you and apprise you of when that public hearing, the Planning Commission public hearing, will take place.
I would love that, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
No, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. It's your first meeting. I know it's not easy to walk up here. Thank you. That's a big deal. Yes, ma'am? Did you want to come up? Welcome. How are you?
Good.
It's your first meeting, too?
It is. I'm actually new resident to Roswell, effective mid-July of this year. And my name's Catherine Reddy. I own property on Old Riverside Road, just a few parcels down from this parcel. And so I am here not to talk about any of our neighborhood's feelings about the development, but to ask some questions about the validity of the application. And so I'm here with 15 other folks from my street. We've got some questions that are MRPA specific that have to do with some folks that somebody who knows more about them, or some things that somebody else who knows more about that than me are going to talk to. But our understanding as a neighborhood is that the application that's required under MRPA requires an owner to file the application, and that MRPA contains within it notice requirements that also require notice to the owner. And we don't believe that the owner is actually the applicant here. So one of our folks did an open records request. We've seen the application. It is not signed by the record owner, who's someone who we understand to have passed away in 2020, and we haven't seen any subsequent conveyance that's recorded. So our question is whether the application fails from the outset because it doesn't have an appropriate party in interest. And so that's something that we would like to raise as an issue.
It's a fair question. Do we have any knowledge of an answer to that? Well, with no knowledge of being able to answer your question tonight, I'm going to have to recommend that we defer the item.
Okay.
So, council, do I have a motion to defer this item? Being unable to answer the question?
Motion to defer until we can get further information.
Can you submit a list of questions to us as well that we can follow up on?
Happy to do that. Is there a best point of contact to send that in to?
Start with the city administrator right here to my right. He's got a card.
Okay.
All right, so we'll get, and yes, sir, 1 second. So there's a motion to defer this item until we can answer questions based upon that you're going to be submitting,
Correct.
including the first one.
Correct.
And is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Councilor Will Morthland. All in favor of deferring this item until we can answer those questions, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the deferment is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, all right. No, we're deferring the item. We're good. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. May I add something as you consider after deferment?
Well, it's deferred, so I mean, like, there's,
There is something I would like to point out for your consideration. Understanding that it's been deferred, it is MRPA specific,
okay.
okay?
I mean, I just deferred, but
I
absolutely,
understand.
we know you come all this
You're
way.
going to pick it up, and I'd like you to
Yes,
to
sir.
take notice of this, all right? My name's Mark Carter, 1420 Old Riverside Road. I've been living there for 18 years. Looking at the site plan that's been submitted, you'll see that there are two parcels. There's a parcel that's the majority of the land that is north of Old Riverside Road. And then there's parcel 2, which is a half-acre parcel, which is in essence the riverbank. Now, what contained within all of these math formulas, this is describing or defining maximum allowable areas for both land disturbance and impervious area. North is where all of the lots are laid out, the 6 lots. But included is the riverbank, and included in the tabulation of all of these impervious areas and land disturbance areas is area along the riverbank, which has listed disturbance area and impervious surface areas. Now, within MRPA, there is a 50-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer requirement, which those areas would be in direct conflict with. In addition, there's a 150-foot easement, or setback of impervious surfaces, meaning that the first 150 feet off the riverbank must be impervious. That 150 feet would reach within the proposed access drive cul-de-sac into this proposed subdivision. There is nothing on the plan that acknowledges those setbacks, nor that they're impervious surfaces or non-impervious surfaces. In fact, the road as drawn graphically includes a curb. So one would assume, seeing a curb, that it's an impervious surface. So those two things would be in violation of the requirements of MRPA. So as you defer and reconsider, we think there are a number of issues here that might disqualify. Thank you.
If you'll do me a favor, Mark, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Let's get Mark's information as well, so we can also follow up with staff, maybe add to the conversation, since you bring up some very salient points.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All right, that being said, the item's deferred, if you guys are good. All right. And we're going to move on to the next item on the regular agenda, which is, let's see, forgive me. We're going to go to Recs and Parks, Parks and Rec, underneath our liaison, Councilmember Lee Hills. Lee, would you read the first item under Parks and Rec?
Yes, thank you. Item 2, approval of a change order to CMAR for Historic Parks Comprehensive Plan and approval of budget amendment 2266-2000-11-12-24 in the amount of $2,131,606.80. And I believe we have Director Malone to kick us off here.
Thank you,
Sir?
Lee.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. As mentioned, just to give a little background into this project and this request specifically, on Monday, September 23rd, 2024, Mayor and Council approved a contract authorization for Reeves Young as the construction manager at risk to execute the first phase elements of the Historic Parks Comprehensive Plan, unofficially known as Founders Park. Over the past 5 weeks, staff has been working with Reeves Young to finalize the contract and develop cost estimates for 5 key elements of the Historic Parks Comprehensive Plan. The 5 elements included are a new regional stormwater retention pond, an event lawn with restrooms and a catering kitchen, expanded lawn and vendor parking, and driveway restoration at Mimosa Hall. The background is due to the scope and requirement adjustments for these 5 elements, staff recommends allocating the remaining American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds of $2,131,606.80 as a change order to the Seymour contract. This would bring the total project budget to $5,727,026.80. And upon approval of the budget amendment, funding in the amount of $2,131,606.80 will be available in ARPA funds. This allocation will fully utilize the remaining balance of state and local fiscal recovery funds under ARPA, meeting the required deadline of December 31st, 2024. I'm happy to answer any questions that mayor and council may have on this item.
Thank you, Director Malone. Appreciate your presentation very much. Does council have any thoughts, comments, or questions on this matter? Councilmember Beeson.
I will go ahead and preface this with, I had some hesitations with nearly doubling the budget when it relates to this project. Fully in support of Founders Park and the concept. Some of the additions are some that I don't necessarily think are the best and highest use of ARPA funds, but I will just go ahead and say for the sake of the public, and Stephen's already rehashed this conversation with me, so I give full support to Stephen and making sure that this was fully prepared for council. But after speaking with some other staff members, part of the reason for allocating our ARPA funds in this, so again, those are federal funds going into this project specifically, as opposed to other projects, because I said, is this the best and highest use? And I was informed by staff this is one of the only uses that we can use it for, just because of the timeliness of using these ARPA funds. The ARPA funds have to be, what's the word? Not spent.
Encumbered.
Encumbered. That's our fun word for today. They need to be encumbered no later than December 31st. So say, for instance, if we were to take another project in our pipeline, there is very little feasible way that we would be able to take that to bid, issue an RFP or RFQ, go through the bidding process, which takes at minimum like 30 to 45 days, take those solicitations, negotiate them, and have a scope for the project itself by that December 31st deadline. So while normally I would probably balk at spending this amount of money or doubling a budget as it relates to something like an events facility within a park, I would much rather have that at our discretion as opposed to not having the funds at all or losing them entirely. So with that, I'm good with moving forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts, Councilmember Hills?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for that insight, Councilmember Beeson. When Mayor Wilson and Mayor Pro Tem Morthland and I joined Christine Hall, Councilmember Christine Hall, we had a decision to make whether we were going to stay in the business of historic assets or get out, which could mean selling all of those, and we made a strong commitment to stay in. I have a catering and event planning background, and I'm so proud to know that Mimosa Hall incorporated into this Founders Park, which is the nickname by now, right now it may change, but anyway, that whole project is going to be activated by monetizing Mimosa Hall. And so I know there's a humongous list of things that we want to do in that corridor, but these first few things, 5 I believe, could be 4, but 5 potentially, to get this ready to go in about a year for us to be renting out that property for events and pulling money back into our coffers on a historic site here in Roswell makes me very, very proud. I'm delighted to move the money over. I think it's a great use, the best use that we can for something that's so precious and that we use as our byline for this city, a historic city, that we are actually going to be using that. And I suspect, and I bet in a couple of years we'll be able to prove, that this will up the ante on all of our historic homes that are private as well, that are rentals in the city. Nothing like putting in 2 restaurants and then 8 more come and they're all making a lot of money. So it's the same sort of philosophy. But I'm very proud of what we're doing, and I just want to make sure for the record that the money that was already allocated had to be spent by the end of the year. This money had to be spent by the end of the year, and there was really no, even though if something else did qualify, we probably didn't have anything in the chute that we could move that money to because it wasn't in the stage ready to encumber. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, beautiful. I'm all for it. Thank you for all your hard work, Mr.
Thank you.
DeLone.
Thank you, Lee. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Councilmember Beeson. Sarah.
I should probably clarify my point. I do not have hesitation in investing in the parks themselves. 100% in support of that. I completely understand the long-term plans with trying to monetize the facilities. There was one line item specifically with an events pavilion built within Mimosa Hall. Love Mimosa Hall, love Friends of Mimosa, love the events that we currently put on there, but the events facility itself, the pavilion alone was, catch me on this, $4.1 million?
Just a little over 4 million.
Okay, so just a hair over $4 million. And for context, we purchased the entirety of Holly Hill Home, which is a historic home, for cheaper than that. We almost bought Bowen Road property for that dollar amount. So it's a hefty dollar amount, but at the same time, I understand that if we don't use it, we lose it. Again, in these federal dollars, these are not city dollars. So we'll be moving forward with that.
Sarah, are you wanting to give praise about some of the purchases that have been made?
I wanted to make sure
Some
that
of the
people understood. I
deftness?
realized in hindsight it sounded like I did not support the parks, and I wanted to make sure I very clearly support Mr. Malone and his efforts with our recreation and parks efforts.
I thought maybe I was hearing you make some collateral praise
I
on
was
some of
giving
these very
context for those.
deft purchases that we made. Thank you, Sarah, very much. Councilmember Sells?
It's been a long time since we talked about this the first time, but I believe you did some analysis of the revenue generation potential for that pavilion. Can you talk briefly about that? I mean, the objective here is to drive tourism in Roswell, people to the new hotels that we're building. The knock-on effects of this are quite substantial, but even on its face, this does a pretty good job of covering, if I recall. Would you go into that a little bit?
And apologies for not having that number right in front of me. I believe the annual revenue that we were anticipating once we were fully functional with this one singular special event venue was just a little over $1 million annually.
Thank you. And what size of event would that be? What's a typical event look like? How many people? Those kinds of things.
So we are planning the design elements to be an average of around 250 attendees to this type of special event. That can go a little higher or a little lower depending on the party itself, but that's what the design and intention of this space would allow.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hills, and by the way, I think Director Malone is intentionally being conservative by design. Councilmember Hills.
This isn't a debate, I just wanted to add on. What's not measurable is that all of our parks, all of our historic assets are considered city public parks. So if there's no denotation about it being closed for a private event, anyone can go and use it. Picnic, walk your dog, just tootle around and look. Now, there's certain times that you can get tours of certain homes, but you can go and utilize that. And to me, you can't put a dollar on that. So it goes well above and beyond the money that we bring in for special event revenue. It's just something that we can utilize every single day and be proud of. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Stephen, have we unfolded the founder's plan that really kind of is Jeff here? Jeff, are you here? He is hiding. I think he's probably exhausted. He's passed out right now from budget malaise. Have we made the founder's plan public with clarity so that everybody can kind of see what that looks like, both the short-term, mid-term, and long-term? Is that out there?
Yes, sir. If the public would like to go back to the meeting on Monday, September 23rd, Mr. Leatherman did a very good job of putting together the framework of that historic master plan, if you will, in that space, in that area.
Is there a simple document blueprint that is out there that everybody could go grab somewhere on our website or somewhere?
It's not on our website currently, but they're welcome to reach out to me, and I'm happy to discuss it. Again, that Monday meeting, it should be public record as far as it being out there in the presentation.
Don, is that something we can work on and through the comms team of possibly making that document available and just kind of clean? And Don's not here either. Hey, Don, everybody's exhausted. Sharon, yes? Thank you. Okay, cool, very much. All right, any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? Are there any Roswell residents that would like to address this item? Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Welcome back. With the Milton shirt, though, tonight. I don't know what's up with that.
My kids went to Milton. We're Roswell residents, but we got redistricted to Milton, so there you go.
Do us a favor.
Daryl O'Hare. I'm in Arbor Creek subdivision. I have lived in Roswell for 25 years, almost 26 now.
Daryl, step up just a little bit so everybody can hear you. Right there in the middle.
At
Yes,
the
ma'am.
X, right?
Perfect.
Exactly where it tells me to stand. Glad to be back. I've been watching online, but I thought I would start coming more in person. I just wanted to say I'm excited about activities that are surrounding our historic buildings, and I wanted to say I bristle a little bit at historic assets. I've been doing a lot of historical work myself. In fact, on the Roswell King family, as they were neighbors of my family way back when. So I wanted to ask a question. I'm thankful for you saying that putting something online, because I was not here actually in town when that was going on. But, and I'm deeply interested in the progress that Roswell is making. I'm thankful that someone from city government had called me about one of my concerns about the description of Smith. I don't call it a plantation anymore, but it's Smith. The Smith Living Museum is what I would love to have it called. I wanted to find out, with this additional budget, I know we're talking about bringing in revenue and having everybody tour around the properties, but the properties are very sacred in many ways that people don't actually experience when they go there sometimes, and have not in the past. I used to go and photograph all of those buildings and visit them as part of the Roswell Photographic Society, and I was on the board there. And sometimes the presentation of the materials could be very welcoming to certain groups of people, but it would be very difficult for certain other people to walk inside those properties. So just wanted to know if that budget, since it's so increased, is also available for educational materials and research and archiving and digging in deep into the actual historical properties beyond what we already have today.
Thank you for the question. Definitely, for this phase of the project, the funds that are allocated would not go towards educational paneling. However, our staff internally always is doing an analysis, and we're in the middle of that process right now of how we can ensure that our educational paneling across all properties is telling the complete story, as we like to call it, to ensure that the messaging is the right messaging to be on site and on those properties.
And would there be an opportunity to build archival space?
I would say the city is always looking at that. That is always...
And you've got a bigger budget, and archives are really big. I'm looking for a place to put my archives, so...
The Roswell Historic Society does offer archives that we do have at the Cultural Arts Center. So we're always looking for more space for expansion, I will say. But that is definitely something that we always consider.
Okay, I'm just hoping that since that's a physical thing, we might be able to actually pay for that. So that's just one idea. There you go.
Yes, ma'am. Daryl, thank you. Yes, Councilor Hills.
And I'll add, I believe it was a year ago, Councilmember Morthland, help me out, it might have been 2, but we went to bat hard for, and this is to you and everyone, to hire a deputy or an assistant to Elaine De Niro, who's our archivist. And we're chaining her to the building. We don't want her to leave, but eventually she'll retire. So we wanted to make sure that we had a transfer of information for that very reason, so that we can continue archiving. We're in talks right now with some folks that have some very significant relatives here in Roswell that they've had an unfortunate death in the family, and some pieces of archive will potentially come our way. And so, yes, we would love to at least see that and scan it in and have it here, or if you were willing to give it back. Anyway, there are a lot of ways to do that. We would be very interested in what you've got, and we continue to look into ways that we can preserve those kind of histories and educate people when they're on our properties that have significant, whether they're painful, delightful, or benign, what's going on here. Absolutely, yes, and thank you for your passion for that.
Thank you, Daryl. Any other comments from Roswell residents on this matter? Thank you very much, Daryl. Bring it back to council. Any final thoughts, comments, or questions? If not, is there a motion?
Yes. Motion to approve a change order to CMAR for Historic Parks Comprehensive Plan and approval of Budget Amendment 2266 2000-11-12-24 in the amount of $2,131,606.80.
Thank you, Councilmember Hills. Motion's made by Councilmember Hills. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilmember Sells. All in favor of the motion passing, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Thank you very much. Councilmember Hills, the second item under Recreation and Parks, would you please read that, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Item 3, approval to award a contract from the mayor and council to start and complete renovations within East Roswell Park and East Roswell Dog Park, and budget amendment BA 314-62000-11-12-24. Director Malone.
Yes, ma'am. Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. This is a very exciting project. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here to present this to you tonight. To give you a little background, East Roswell Park is a 40-acre facility that has served the east side of Roswell since opening in the early 1990s. Amenities include soccer fields, softball fields, a recreation center, playgrounds, pavilions, a dog park, and an art center. In FY23, Mayor and Council allocated funding to support essential updates and maintenance for this park. Staff was directed to compile a comprehensive list of needs based on the department's 5-year master plan. Once the priorities were identified, staff engaged with TSW for design services, including landscape and engineering. Some of the construction elements that have been completed to date include replacement of 2 artificial turf fields, stormwater updates, restroom renovations, resurfacing of tennis courts, and installation of new light poles. The remaining construction elements that is in this request this evening include, in the design, a dog park, renovation and parking lot improvements, a new art center driveway, including a turnaround and drop-off area, addition of trail connectivity down Fouts Road, new ADA ingress and egress at both Pavilions 1 and 2, a new playground at Pavilion 2, and the addition of new ADA parking at the soccer fields. To give you a little more description, after receiving the 100% construction documents, staff put this project out to bid through the bonfire procurement portal as a request for invitation to bid. The total of 4 bids were received, and the lowest responsible bidder was Complete Site LLC, was evaluated and interviewed by staff to ensure their capability to perform the services requested. To give you a little bit of the financial impact, staff is seeking contract award to Complete Site LLC in the amount of $2,319,849. The total budget authorization of up to $2,551,833.90 is being requested. That does include a 10% contingency, which will help facilitate successful completion of the project within the established parameters and budget. Available funding will be $2,217,632 from the 2023 bond proceeds authorized by the referendum, funding of $234,238.58 from the Capital Project Fund, and a funding of $100,000 from the Tree Bank Fund to total that whole budget authorization dollar amount. Happy to answer any questions you
Thank
may
you,
have.
Director Malone. Does the council have any thoughts, comments, or questions? Councilor Hills, sorry. Yeah, I'll do council. You go first, Lee.
None of you knew this. Well, maybe you did. This is such a feel-good project. I haven't even told Director Malone this. This is such a feel-good project for me because when I, 9 days before qualification, decided to run for office, this was the park that I took pictures, did a video in for part of my campaign, because so many things there I felt like had just been left untouched for years and years and years. And that's a bigger conversation to unpack tonight, but neglect would be the word I would use for that. But I was highlighting the dog park at that time, but I also noted the soccer, the softball, the playgrounds, the pavilions. I've been in the art center, so that one I knew about. I live all the way on the west side on 92. The last neighborhood touches Cobb County. Now, my next door neighbor right here lives as far east, but I'm over in a park that I would not normally go to. One of my organizations I volunteer in meets over there, so I saw it regularly. I'm like, oh, why is this one just left? So I'm delighted that we're all the way here, and we've been through, now this is the 3rd round of upgrades, Botox, corrective surgery, and all that. And I'm tickled to death that we're at this place and engaging bond, tree bank fund, and capital projects monies, all to make it happen. So this is something that we set forth when we came in office 3 years ago for the east side, and not to badger, placate, or anything like that. It is a serious need, and it just hadn't been addressed. So thank you very much for sticking with us on this and getting all the hard work done. I can't wait to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks very much. I'm going to go in order. Christine, Councilmember Hall. Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, is there a design concept for this on the bond website by chance? Not
No,
yet?
it is not, but I'll work with the team and try to get it on there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Christine. Will, Councilmember Worthley.
Director Malone, you may have touched on this and I missed it, but what is the estimated completion of this project?
Yes, sir. So once we are under contract, we anticipate to be under construction early of 2025. Anticipated completion will be somewhere between 10 to 12 months for the project. If we're fortunate, we hope to be done with the project by the end of 2025. If we do hit some delays, it would likely be early 2026. And we may be able to phase in opening aspects of the project as construction moves along.
Thank you.
Will, I'm very sorry that will not coordinate with your election campaign. Sarah, did you have something? Okay.
I was funny, Will.
Okay, yes.
She sits further back. It's hard to see.
Any other thoughts from council? Very good, thanks. Any Roswell residents who'd like to address this item? Thank you very much. Bring it back to council. Lee, do you have a motion?
I'm
Oh,
just going to
Councilor
say,
Sells, sorry.
this is a great project, and I'm really thankful that we've done this. And not only that, I would say between that and the Seven Branches Park to which this attaches, there are some real gems on the east side. That park in particular, if you have the right headset and a nice forest sounds, you'll think you're in the North Georgia mountains down the Seven Branches. It's just gorgeous, and it's undeveloped, but you can park across the street on Eves Road above the tennis courts. It is a really, really pretty place, so I appreciate that.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? It is a testimony, Lee, thanks for bringing this up, that the governing body has been very serious about investing money in the east side of Roswell in a considerable way so that it begins to show up. And I think this is a perfect example. So thank you all for doing that. Lee, do you have a motion you'd like to make?
I do. Four whole years later, we'll see it completed, and we'll take it because we're 3 years in. Motion to approve to award a contract from the mayor and council to start and complete renovations within East Roswell Park and East Roswell Dog Park, and budget amendment BA 314-6-2000 11-12-24.
Thank you, Lee. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilmember David Johnson, who hasn't spoken on the matter. Nonetheless, we'll take a second. All those in favor of approval of item 3, the approval to award this contract, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. All right, next we go to actually the city attorney's report. I think there's 2 items. City Attorney David, just read the first item, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item I have is a resolution instituting a temporary moratorium on murals in the city of Roswell. Basically, there's been some murals proposed in the city. We do have currently have an ordinance. When these were brought to my attention, though, there are some court cases out there that may affect our ordinance. So the objective of this is to just maintain the status quo till we can go in and research it, redraft the ordinance if we need to make sure we're still legal and compliant.
Does council, yes, ma'am, Councilor Beeson, Sarah.
I was just going to ask, normally this would go through committee before it comes to council. I totally understand in the instance of Mr. Malone earlier presenting the item because it has to be done by December 31st. That skipped committee just because of timeliness. But for this one, will we be able to defer this? Can I motion to defer this back to committee to start there?
You can, yes, ma'am. So there's a motion from Councilmember Beeson to defer this item. Approval of a resolution instituting temporary moratorium on murals inside the city of Roswell. Motion's made by Councilmember Beeson. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Does everybody understand the? Yeah.
Is there any jeopardy, David, because we are deferring that? As I understood what you just said, we're talking about we are not in compliance with certain regulations?
I am not 100% positive, so it would give me time to research and change the ordinance if we need to, that 90 days. We still have an ordinance that's on the books right now, so we could use that ordinance still. So it's okay if you want to defer.
Okay.
I'm not, just for my purposes, I'm not sure what I think I understood the question. I don't think I understood the answer.
So we could get challenged on our ordinance, but that's going to take way longer than 90 days. So I'm okay if you want to defer it to committee.
There's not a time issue.
Right. It's not an emergency time issue right now.
All right, further comment, thoughts? Councilmember Mortland? Yes, you did. I saw it in the back of my head. Councilmember Hall?
I'll just comment. This is something we have to address, and I don't know that committee will, it will just delay bringing us back here. So I'm in favor of go ahead and voting on the moratorium. That's what I would support right now, just so that we can get this addressed and get it fixed and get it back out there.
I will say I think it sets a bad precedent because we have a historical legacy of putting things through committee, through the discipline of committee, and not having a adjunct conversation shooting from the hip at the dais that gives opportunity for you as a governing body to circulate, get feedback from one another, push back. I think there's wisdom in that. I'm not a big fan, as you know, of beginning the legislative process at the dais. I think it creates a potential for chaos in the discipline process. And so you guys obviously have the votes to do what you want. I am not going to vote on this matter. You guys will vote on this matter. But I would advise from a standpoint of, honestly, I've been a little busy. And so, you know, usually all this stuff gets on here. It's my fault. Anything that gets on here is my fault. And usually I'll see something and have a comment or a question. I obviously did not register with me. I would have said, hey, look, can we have a conversation about this before we put it on? Does it need to go to committee? That would have been my counsel. But it sits here. So, yes, ma'am, Councilor Hills.
Yes, thank you. This is just a moratorium. It's not making super decisions other than putting a pause on anybody going forward with a mural at this time. I feel very committed to, while we're talking about historic assets, we've got several things on the table we need to make decisions on regarding our historic district. We have just acquired the Old Methodist Church, which is yet another historic site and building. So I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't take the time to really think about what we're doing in the historic district and how we're doing it. And how that shakes out is yet to be seen. But I don't see any problem with the moratorium right now. It's not really going to change anything that's going on. It just gives us 90 days to do some research and then go through the proper procedures that we normally would with ability to publicly make comments one way or the other.
Councilmember Johnson. And by the way, the conversation right now is about the deferment. Deferment? Yes, there's a deferment motion on the floor. Oh, okay. It's been seconded, so the conversation is, does this motion get deferred?
So I would like to not defer.
Not defer.
Sorry, I didn't finish.
No, sorry.
I know I missed the last Friday's legal 3-on-3. Was this discussed in that meeting?
No.
And so there's been no, on the 3-on-3, there's been no discussion about this, and obviously this hasn't reached the committee. Okay. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments, or questions? So let me warn the body. You probably know this. The mayor has the ability not to put items on the agenda or to take items off at any time during the legislative process. But I respect my colleagues and want them to make this process. I am not tickled that we're looking at this. I'll just let you know. This, to me, is a committee item. I think that based upon our 3 years together, we've established a precedent. But you guys make the decision on this going forward. There's a...
You're going to have to break a tie.
Oh, you know how I'm going to vote.
He's giving you a head right
Yeah. So there's a motion on the floor. Yes, sir, Councilman Martland.
What is the next committee meeting? When is the next committee meeting?
We got a bunch of meetings coming up.
My birthday.
The 26th. So you got a council meeting Thursday night. You guys know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a council meeting Thursday. You got a council meeting next Monday, the 18th. And you got a council meeting on the 26th. So committee is the 26th, is that right? Yes. The 26th. So we got a back-to-back like we did tonight? Yes. So that would be, to answer your question, Will, 2 weeks from tonight. Now, there's no reason we can't put a committee meeting on the 18th. There's no reason we can't put a committee meeting on next Monday. No, we can do that. Matter of fact, happy to do that for one item. Happy to do that. Gives everybody some time to percolate that. That would be my desire and wish, to get, literally, so you guys can have some time to talk with one another behind the scenes. Is that fair? Yes, ma'am.
Clarifying question. So at committee, we're going to discuss whether we're going to advance a moratorium so that Attorney Davidson can do the work. Is that what we're going to discuss in committee?
You've got it. This says approval of a resolution instituting a temporary moratorium on murals in the city of Roswell. So I think you guys will determine what you want to put on that committee item, right? I don't want to prejudge that, right? Because you may change that. Councilmember Johnson.
David, how much time do you think you need to research our ordinance and compare it to the court cases that were mentioned?
To research it and everything, it'd probably be less than a month, but to get everything adopted, it would, have to go through the process. So an ordinance change, and it's in the UDC, so it has to go through all the body, the planning commission.
So
Right.
it's a,
Less than 90 days.
sorry, it's,
It would be right at 90 days to get through for a text amendment.
You're talking about going through a moratorium process, David? So what you're saying?
no, I'm
No,
saying
it's
if we
changed the
defer this and he researches what we need to change in the UDC for I can't talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Outside
Yeah,
paintings.
the drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and it gives us the ordinance changes. Do we even need a moratorium, is my question.
The purpose of the moratorium is to give you time.
Right,
Correct?
it just maintains the status quo, so there would be no new murals or anything coming to the city until we were able to change the ordinance or not change the ordinance, whatever this council
All right,
decides.
there's a motion on the floor. I am advocating, begging that you put this on committee next Tuesday, the 18th. We'll put a committee meeting on the 18th. I'm begging you to do that. That's right. Monday. So there's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded to defer this. Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Hills.
I'm not going to vote unless I know we can get that on committee on next Monday.
You have my word. We'll put
Okay.
it on committee on the 18th.
Does everyone hear that?
Yes. Yeah. No problem. Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Hall.
I would request that we amend the motion to defer it to the committee meeting on the 18th.
Is that fair, Sarah?
Yeah, and to clarify too, the special call that already exists or is in the works for Monday, the 18th, that is a standard council meeting. We would just be putting this right before it, or we would doing a?
I don't think it's a standard, it's a special called meeting. You got a special called meeting Thursday, the 14th, and a special called meeting Monday, the 18th.
Okay.
So we'll just have a special called committee meeting.
Special? Okay.
Special.
All right, so amend the motion to include that this be the approval of a resolution instituting a temporary moratorium on murals in the city of Roswell be moved or deferred to a special called committee meeting on Monday, November 18th.
That's fair.
Yes.
Do you second that? Second. All right. Now, any other conversation on that amended motion? All right, I'm going to take a quick vote. All in favor of the amended motion, please raise your hands. I'm not doing public comment on this one. I'm moving on. Yes, thank you. You can comment next week. We'll be back at it next Monday. We're deferring the motion. Deferring the motion. It's been amended. Thank you very much. All right. Any other items? I think the last item, David.
The only other item I have is a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion for closure? Motion for closure made by Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Mortland. All in favor of going to closure, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the motion to closure passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. And let's see. Got anything else? Okay. Being that there are no other items, this mayor and council meeting on November 12, 2024 is adjourned. Thank you very much.